Welcome to the Trade Talk Showcase on Brownfield. I'm anchor reporter Megan Grebner. With us today are members from the Cattlemen's Beef Board, and I'm going to let everybody introduce yourselves and your role with CBB. Jared, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Jared Brackett. I'm currently the chairman of the Cattlemen's Beef Board, cow-calf producer from Idaho.
So I'm Hugh Sandberg. I'm the vice chair for the Cattlemen's Beef Board. I live in Western Colorado, and we have a cow-calf operation as well.
And I'm Norm Voiles from Indiana, central Indiana. We've got a cow-calf operation, and then we feed a few cattle as well, commercial operation.
Morning, Megan. I'm Greg Haynes. I'm the CEO at the Cattlemen's Beef Board. So we're based here in Denver, and appreciate you spending the time with us here this morning.
We're excited to have everybody with us today. Greg, we're going to start with you. And I think one of the things that it has been talked about and continues to be talked about are some concerns or misinformation that's been circulated about checkoff issues. Talk to me a little bit about that and what CBB is doing to address that misinformation.
Right. Yeah, and I think this is probably one of the biggest challenges that we face now. You know, the checkoff has been around for about 35 years. A lot of the producers that have grown up now weren't involved with the implementation of the checkoff. And so it's kind of left a void in the sense that people who may not like the checkoff or against it are really, I think, trying to utilize misinformation and false information to try and influence some of these producers. And so that's really been a big focus of ours over the last year and going forward. We have a new person on board who's I kind of call him the issues management person, just trying to really address some of these concerns and the misinformation more directly and be proactive in that case. The checkoff right now is doing a lot of great things. And I don't know if a lot of the producers are necessarily seeing all that. So we have to do a better job of getting that information out there. But again, addressing the false information and false rumors is a priority. There's a lot of, I think, mis-ideas about what the checkoff can and can't do. And that's leading to this confusion. And so we need to make sure that the producers are clear what it can and can't do. There's a petition out there to actually do away with the checkoff. And so I think people don't even realize that. They may think, well, we need to update the checkoff or do something, but this petition isn't to update or do that. This is to get rid of the checkoff. And so all these programs that are out there designed to build demand for beef in a very competitive and crowded protein market would go away. And so I always say, if you've got Coke and Pepsi fighting against each other and you see all the advertising and promotion they do, if one of those companies were to stop, what's going to happen? The other one is going to dominate. And so that's what we have to make sure producers know is that, if we do away with the checkoff, all these programs are not going to be there. And all the competition is going to keep going, and we're going to definitely be at a disadvantage and impacted negatively. So it's important that we're able to address this, and going forward, that's our goal.
With the volatility that's been seen in the beef industry and beef markets, do you worry that gives an opportunity for organizations or people who are against the checkoff the chance to use that to amplify about where their checkoff dollars are going or what's going on, and it kind of feeds into that negative conversation about what the checkoff does and what the beef associations do?
Right. No, definitely. I think, anytime there's market disruptions and, people are having challenging times, they're always looking to blame someone or something. And unfortunately, a lot of times, because of the checkoffs here, it's like, well, let's blame the checkoff. And so that's an area where we need to make sure that people realize that, the checkoff doesn't control beef markets. The checkoff doesn't do any policy. The checkoff's goal and design is to build demand for our product. And so we're apolitical, building demand for products supports all the beef producers. If we were trying to work on policy issues, there's always multiple sides on a policy issue. So if we would pick one side, we're obviously going to disenfranchise a whole other side of producers. So we don't do that, and that's how it was designed. And so we need to make sure that the producers understand that. They know what the checkoff can do. You know, they say the worst decisions are made in the worst of times. And that's the challenge here. You know, we had a lot of market disruptions this summer. You know, people were losing money, and obviously there's all these market factors that are going on. But again, these aren't factors that the checkoff deals with. But again, they want to try and blame someone, or, just, they're complaining about it. And so this is where we need to really make sure that, as they go forward, the decisions are made on the facts, what the programs are doing and the impact that they have. So that's key. So again, we're really focused on trying to get that information. You know, if we want to be as transparent with everything that's going on with the programs, how those decisions are made. These decisions are all made by producers like, our officers here and other producers around the country. So it's not like some corporation or company that's deciding what the checkoff does. This is an industry-led program, and industry is, the producers are making these decisions. And so that, I think, is very important. So we're fully open and transparent. If people have questions about how the checkoff is working or what it's doing, I invite them to call me, to call any of our officers, call any of our members. We can explain it and let you know. And I hope people don't just get sucked into this, negative vortex of people trying to assign blame and making up information that's not accurate about these programs.
As cattle producers, and I'll let, if any of you would like to answer, your take on the misinformation and what it does to you as a cattle producer, but the cattle industry as well.
Maybe I'll say a couple of words about it. Is the challenge, one of the worst challenges is the amount of money that's going to have to be spent working on on our behalf, on the Checkoff's behalf, to fight this misinformation. And then all the money that's going to be involved with USDA to certify names and things like that, that's all coming out of the Beef Board's budget. Instead of being able to use it for programs to promote the product or research on nutrition and the other programs that we have. So that's certainly one of the disappointing things about this Checkoff challenge.
Norm, I'm going to stay with you for a second. COVID-19 2020 is an unprecedented year. Talk to me a little bit about how the Checkoff and how Checkoff contractors really have had to pivot throughout the pandemic and how that's impacted cattle producers.
Sure. Well, back in March and April, when it became apparent that we had a pandemic going on and there were going to be some challenges with our contractors and what they were going to be able to do for this year, CBB stepped up and started talking to them and saying, have you got some issues that you need to work through? What help can we give to you? And some of the things that they did is they began to realize that they need to pivot from in-person, either conventions, expos, programs to virtual programs. One of the nice things about that is converting to these virtual programs is even though the folks didn't get their hands on to maybe to go out to a farm and experience that hands-on, a small group of 35 to 50 folks, our contractors were actually able to talk to folks, maybe 1,000 folks through a virtual program. So from that aspect, it was actually beneficial. Some of the other things that the contractors have been able to do is really push some of their websites that told folks, instead of going out to eat, which you're not going to be doing, going out to restaurants, let's look at some new recipes that you can use to be able to fix these meals at home that are going to be just as flavorful, just as entertaining, and just as much fun, really, in preparing meals at home through our beef Checkoff contractors and Beef It's What's for Dinner, for instance, one website they could go to pick out some of these meals.
I think it's interesting you bring up that the whole pivoting, I mean, in general, it has been for everybody as well. We have young kids at home, and their favorite part of their day is when my husband and I will let them into the kitchen to help and it's very limited because they're very young. But I think that that's an opportunity to highlight beef as the center of the plate protein for families. While you may not be able to go out and get a good steak, you can always do curbside or meal to go type options that still is able to highlight how wonderful beef is.
Sure, absolutely. And in fact, beef's actually increased its protein market share by 4 percentage points over this last year, just because of the good work that our contractors have been able to do over this pandemic. So, our contractors, we can't give them enough praise for what they've been able to do, and the promotion that they do for our product.
Demand is a key component of profitability for everybody. We know we want beef exported, we want beef consumed here at home. Hugh, can you talk to me a little bit about exports and the export situation and how things are looking and how demand for U.S. beef is faring on the global market?
Absolutely, and thank you, Megan, for having us here today. The export market has faced challenges just like any of the other markets, similar issues, supply chain disruptions, availability of product. But when you look at our export market, it has fared very well. You look domestically, our demand was strong. Our demand in the foreign market has stayed strong. Through this whole pandemic and issue, we've seen a 6% rise in our market share in Japan. We've seen our market share in Korea go to 56%. So I think we have a positive story to tell, and through that marketing, we more fully utilize the carcass that we produce here in the United States, because we send underutilized cuts to a number of other countries, which increases demand and hopefully our price for our product. This year, through September, our price per carcass is down a bit. It's $295. But when you look at all the headwinds that we've had through this pandemic, I think it's remarkable where we have stayed. And just like I said, those increases in market share in those key markets, the growing markets that we have, whether it's Africa or wherever in the world, are going to continue to be vital to our business plan to continue to market to those entities to help us fully utilize that carcass and drive demand.
I think you can't also escape the fact that you've seen growth in beef exports to China. How promising is that for the global demand picture, but also ultimately for bringing and improving the value of the product that you produce?
China's going to play a significant role in the coming years. They're such a large market. And when you look at next year, there's expected to be an overall increase and a record-setting pace of animal protein on the market. And so China's going to be a key player in that market, in the world market. And when you look at our domestic market and our exports, China's not real big at this point. We haven't marketed a lot, but with the phase 1 agreement that we're in, we're seeing exponential growth into that market. And so I think the anticipation is that as time moves forward, we'll continue to see that market play a bigger and bigger role for the U.S. producer.
And I'll open this up to whoever wants to answer. When we look at that demand pie, how important is it that there's a balance of not only domestic demand and continued desire for the product here at home, but that we also see an increase of want for U.S. beef on the global market?
Well, I'll jump into that one first, if it's all right. That, not having all your eggs in one basket comes to mind. If you have a diversity of how you market your product, you aren't totally reliant on one side or the other. Obviously, domestic demand is our biggest portion of our demand, and we need to continue to focus and work on that demand. But the export portion of that just gives us a little cushion to not having all of our eggs in that one basket, as I said. And I think it makes us a much more sustainable industry going forward.
And Megan, I'd just add, you've got 96% of the world's population outside of the US. and you've got the fastest growing economies all, outside of the US. So the potential out there is just huge. As these economies develop, their diets change, they start looking for better protein sources. Beef's kind of the premier protein source, and they start moving towards that. You had brought up China. If you looked at China 10 years ago, they were hardly importing any beef. And now within that decade, they've become the largest importer of beef in the world. So that demand is huge. So even if we're not necessarily maybe selling all of it to China, they're buying it from other suppliers, which is opening up other opportunities for us in those markets. And then the other thing I think, Hugh kind of alluded to is that usually the cuts that we're exporting to these markets aren't the cuts we normally eat. We usually like steaks and hamburgers, but there's, tongues and tripe and liver and all these things that we don't like to eat. And so either we just throw those away or, use it for dog food, or we can export these to these markets that use them in their cuisine and pay a premium for it. So I think that's huge that, if we want to grow, we can get rid of a lot of these variety meat cuts that we don't necessarily consume. But as these markets evolve, they're looking for more of the premium cuts too. So that's going to create further demand. And so the producers have opportunities to grow and do more and leverage that.
And then I think the other thing that they kind of hit on a little bit is, we are marketing the whole animal, but you're not sending the whole animal to one place. You're sending the best cuts to the right places, which in turn allows us to get the best value for that cut. So it might be rounds to Mexico and tongue to Japan, which if we don't do that, we don't get the best value for them. So I think that's important that our producers understand that it's not about marketing the whole cow to one person or one place. It's about the best cuts to the best places.
That's a great perspective. Jared, as we wrap up today, I want to talk a little bit about sustainability. I think that's a conversation that isn't going away anytime soon. Talk to me a little bit about what the beef industry is doing in their sustainability efforts in production.
So we really welcome this conversation. I mean, because if you look at the beef industry and our producers, there are massive amounts of multi-generational operations. And if that doesn't say sustainability, I don't know what does. The other thing that we talk about in sustainability is, what are we doing when we produce this product? We've got these beef animals that are taking a low quality forage and turning it into a high quality protein source that is known and trusted around the world and in our country for immense flavor and safety. Things like that, that doesn't happen overnight, and that doesn't happen by accident. We've worked incredibly hard on this. Our contractors have gone to a lot of effort to help develop programs to ensure that not only is our beef production sustainable, but we're doing it right. I don't know if you realize this, but the U.S. cattle industry produces 18% of the world's beef with only 6% of the world's cattle. That's pretty impressive. And then you turn it back to look at another way. It takes almost 3 head of cattle in another country to produce what we're doing in the United States with 1 cow. So if that's not sustainable, I don't know what else is, because that's also very efficient. We've done a great job in improving the quality of it as well. We've gone from being 60, 70% choice to over 80% choice with our carcasses and our quality. And that's done through hard work, genetics, continuing driving demand, and our consumers demanding things. And we've noticed that our consumers in this day and age, they want more information. They want to know where their product comes from, how it was raised. And that in turn has led us to help develop through our contractors some programs such as beef quality assurance, where a producer can go and take a class and get certified of the practices that he's currently doing. I mean, a lot of the stuff we're already doing, we don't certify. We don't tell our story very good sometimes. And so they go to those classes, they get certified, and that's just a stamp, like a seal of approval that, yes, we're doing this correctly. And our consumers are demanding that. They like that. And it's shown by the increase in demand for some of these branded products and programs. Our ranch, personally, we're involved in a couple of them. One of them is GAP 4, which, that's an above and beyond standard, which we go through, that has whole animal welfare. Our whole ranch management program gets looked at and how we produce these livestock. There are other programs such as CARES other things that go to help assure the producer or the consumer that the producer is doing the right thing when we raise these animals, and that they can trust that product. And we've got a great name. We want to keep it.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. If folks want to find out more information about what Checkoff Dollars are doing, or best ways, recipes, those types of things that they can put together in their own homes with great U.S. beef, what's the best way for them to do so?
So if they go to drivingdemandforbeef.com is one place that they can go to get some stuff. If you're a producer, we want to hear from you. We want you to sign up for the drive if you already haven't. We want you guys to be involved and help us make our decisions. This is a producer-run organization. If you're a consumer, we want you to continue to look at our high-quality product. We want you to continue to utilize it at home in recipes. There's lots of fun new ways to do this. All that stuff's on the website, and I'm sure Greg can give us a couple more examples.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can go to the Driving Demand for Beef.com, which will, as Jared said, you can sign up for the newsletters, hear what the programs are doing. Obviously, you can go to the beefboard.org website, which gives you even more information about the our organization. And then there's beef@whatsfordinner.com, which has all those recipes and different ways to utilize beef. So a lot of resources out there to be able to get what you need about beef.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you do as well.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we appreciate it. So, and thanks to all the producers out there for making our job easier by, creating that great beef.
I'm Megan Grebner for Brownfield.